So if you remember a few weeks ago, I actually interviewed a journalist from the Register named Kieran McCarthy about the whole debacle that happened between him and the chief operating officer, Michael Artz from Atari. Now, Kieran, during GDC 2018, actually interviewed Michael about the Atari VCS. And how can I summarize that interview? Well, Michael knew absolutely nothing about the system. It was basically like, oh, it's going to have an AMD processor in it, and this controller here, this classic controller, yeah, it's a USB-C port, but I don't know if it'll work on your computer, and there's going to be developers developing games, and it's going to be like a really good laptop. Yeah, that's the Atari VCS. I don't really know anything. Well, Kieran, because he's a journalist and, well, that's his job, called out Michael Artz, the chief operating officer of Atari, for not knowing anything about the system, because he should know things about the system, and wrote a rather scathing article, and Atari turned around and said that Kieran was delivering fake news.
You are fake news.
Kieran, of course, because, having credibility as a journalist is very important, wasn't too happy about that and was lucky enough to have his audio logs of the interview he had with the Atari COO, and Kieran released them to back up his claims about what he said in the article, and everything that Kieran said, he could back up with those audio logs, so Atari calling him fake news was, well, them delivering fake news because they were full of crap.
Fake news.
And they were just trying to throw Kieran under the bus to damage control. Well, it seems that Atari has been listening to the negativity and they're trying to get their act together. Supposedly. We'll have to wait and see. But the information I have here, everything I'm about to tell you, seems like good signs that Atari is actually trying to make a decent system. I'm still not going to buy one, but at least they're trying. I'll give them an A- for effort. Actually, no, I'll give them a B-, but let's continue. Well, anyway, here is some interesting news that slipped under my radar. Atari recently hired Rob Wyatt. Now, who is that? Rob Wyatt was the Xbox system architect for the original Xbox. So he's an industry veteran, and now he's working for Atari, and he's working on the Atari VCS. And he gives some information about the system and announces a key upgrade that he made to the hardware to make it more capable. The first big thing that Rob wants to announce is that the Atari VCS is getting a RAM upgrade. Originally, it was only going to have 4 gigabytes. Now the Atari VCS is going to have 8 gigabytes. This is what he said about that. The VCS hardware will be powered by an AMD Bristol Ridge family APU with Radeon R7 graphics and is now going to get 8 gigabytes of unified memory. This is a huge upgrade from what was originally specified, and unlike other consoles, it's all available. We won't reserve 25% of hardware resources for system use. Now, still, the Atari VCS doesn't sound like it's going to be a powerhouse, but that extra 4 gigabytes of memory is a big deal, especially if they want to tout it to be a somewhat capable home console. It's still not going to be on par with the Xbox One and PS4, but that extra system memory will help game development quite a bit. Now Rob talks about why they didn't choose a Ryzen APU for the Atari VCS and stuck with Bristol Ridge. This is what he says about that. Yes, on paper, the Ryzen family is technically better, but without increasing the cost and having a higher thermal capacity, a Ryzen APU would never run at full performance. When the Ryzen is operating in a thermally limited environment, its performance is only marginally better than Bristol Ridge. Now, how much truth there is behind that the Ryzen APU would be thermally throttled and it wouldn't run at full capacity anyway, so it would be on par or close to on par with the Bristol Ridge APU. I don't know, and I don't have the kind of hardware to, basically run my own kind of test or hypothesis with that. But I have to assume he's telling the truth. Why would he make that up, and what benefit would he have to, telling a lie right there? So now Rob goes on to talk about using another operating system alongside the Atari OS, and this is what he has to say about that. Our core architecture consists of the Atari Secure Hypervisor and a heavily modified Linux kernel called the Atari OS. All of this is in flash memory, and before the Atari OS loads, any external storage device is checked, and if a bootable device is found, the other OS on that device is loaded instead. We don't have a typical OS loader like U-boot or Grub, and because the CPU is already in 64-bit protected mode from our boot code, the other OS will need its typical startup code changing. Now, for people who are looking forward to loading their own Linux operating system on the Atari VCS, Atari says they'll release full instructions how to get your own version of Ubuntu on there, so don't let what you were just told right there stress you out. You'll be able to load your own Linux operating system and run it in its full capacity. And Rob Wyatt said this about the Atari VCS as well. They're still trying to push this as a selling point. We never want to lose sight that it's your hardware to do with as you want. So there you go. Never fear, your Atari VCS is still going to be your little Atari-shaped computer that you can load your own operating system on. I don't really see why that's personally too exciting, but I guess there's a lot of people that are looking forward to doing that.
The challenge excites me. Look at my nipples. Look at them!
Now, does this make me any more excited for the Atari VCS? No. I still don't know the point of it existing. I don't really see where it fits into the console market. Kieran McCarthy from the Register said the same thing, and I totally agree with him.
I don't see it fitting anywhere. I really thought when they announced this that this would be Nintendo did that retro console, which was a big success. And I thought they're going to come up with an Atari one. They'll use the old styling. This will be fun. It'll be like $100, maybe 150, and they'll do a really nice job bringing in the Atari games. And maybe they'll stick a couple of modern things on. They'll stick HDMI, and then maybe they'll get 4K, and maybe they'll upgrade their games. I thought this would be like, if they do a good job, this would be a retro console plus. And then I was very surprised when they said, no, we're going to make it a whole modern system. And then there's literally, I do not see the market. Now, there's like 11,000 people that have signed up, which is great. And I'm sure some of them will be happy with it if it ever comes out. But that's not a market. That's 10,000 people. I just cannot see the market for this.
It's not as powerful as a PS4 and Xbox One, so it's not going to compete on that scale. It's not versatile and intuitive like the Nintendo Switch, so it's not going to compete there. There's a billion different ways you could have a small, low-powered computer under your TV. I mean, okay, it won't look like an Atari, but hey, maybe if you're a big modder, maybe you could find a way to make an Atari into a low-power computer and have it look just as cool. But I don't know why this system exists. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And nostalgia isn't going to make 20 million Atari VCSs sell. You're going to have a very, very niche market, and beyond that market, no one else is going to give a crap about the Atari VCS. But whatever, I still consider what Rob Wyatt came out and talked about a good sign. The Atari brought him on board because he knows his shit. And you could see he really understands the hardware and the software, and he wanted to communicate with the community that, hey, we're listening to you, we're explaining to you what the system is about, and we're even upgrading the hardware to make it more capable. Because when I heard 4 gigabytes of RAM was going to be in the Atari VCS, I'm like, even though it's a lower power system that's not as capable as the other consoles out in the market, minus the Switch, 4 gigabytes for a home console is just not enough, especially if you're looking to run even a Linux operating system on there. Having that extra 4 gigabytes of memory, which Rob is saying that the user will have full access to, you won't have like the Atari VCS running something in the background, I think is great. And if there are games, third-party games or first-party games that do come out for the Atari VCS, having that extra memory will be beneficial to developers as well. Again, I mean, I don't see where the Atari VCS fits, but it looks like Atari, with them hiring Rob Wyatt and him coming out with this Q&A, it looks like they're trying to focus and come out with a better piece of hardware. Hopefully, it's something that is beneficial to the community. And hey, man, I'm not interested in it, but I do hope that it's successful. I don't want to see any company come out with a product and have it fail. I don't want to see it. I want to see everything succeed, because the more things that are successful, the more competition there is, and the more people stay employed. So I wish the Atari VCS the best. I hope that it's not a scam. And with what Rob Wyatt came out and said, it looks like they're really trying to focus now and get shit on course and come out with an actual product. This is Retro Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.
Look at my nipples.